All right, let's get into it. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest, toughest questions out there, one that really challenges everything we think we know about faith and the world. We're going to unpack a pretty unique way of looking at it, a theological framework that tries to make sense of it all.
And here it is, the question, the one that gets right to the heart of the matter. You don't have to be religious to feel the weight of this one. How in the world can you have a God who is supposedly all good and all-powerful, and then look around at a world that is just so full of pain and suffering? How do those two things exist at the same time?
So to even begin to untangle this, we have to start by questioning a really common assumption, the idea that everything that happens in the world is something God actively wants to happen. This framework says, hold on, what if that's not the case at all?
And this is where it gets really interesting. This perspective starts with the idea that God isn't some distant, detached landlord. According to Professor John Peckham, whose work really shapes this whole idea, the God you see in the Bible actually hates evil, probably more than we do. And when we suffer, he suffers with us. So the foundational idea here is that a whole lot of things happen in this world that God absolutely does not want to happen.
Okay, so if God doesn't want evil and suffering, then why does it exist? Where does it come from? Well, the first layer of the answer is a concept you've probably heard a million times, but it is absolutely foundational, and that is the idea of free will.
Let's just be super clear on what we're talking about here. In this context, free will is the genuine, real ability for created beings, and that means humans and other beings, like angels, to make their own choices without being forced or controlled.
So why would a creator grant such a risky, dangerous freedom? Well, the argument is pretty powerful. For genuine love to even be possible, which this framework calls the highest value in the entire universe, there has to be freedom. Think about it. You can't program a robot to love you and call it real love. A world where you couldn't choose evil is also a world where you couldn't freely choose love.
But let's be real for a second. That explanation only gets us so far, right? I mean, what about natural disasters or diseases that strike children? It really feels like an all-powerful God could step in and prevent some of that stuff without messing with anyone's free will. And that's where this framework says, yeah, you're right, because there's a much bigger story going on behind the scenes.
So let's peel back another layer. This next part suggests that our world, our suffering, is actually just one small part of a huge, invisible cosmic conflict. And it's not a battle between two equal gods, but a conflict between the Creator and one of his own creations who chose to rebel.
You know, Jesus himself told a story that gets right at this. He talked about a farmer who planted good wheat in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, an enemy came and scattered a bunch of weeds all over the place. And when the workers asked the farmer what happened, his answer was simple: an enemy has done this. The problem didn't come from the farmer. It was introduced by an outside antagonist.
Now this right here, this is the absolute game changer for this entire argument. If God is all-powerful, then this conflict can't be about who's stronger. That's a non-starter. Instead, this framework says the battle is about something else entirely. It's about character. It's about reputation. It's a war of ideas.
So what's the enemy's strategy? If you can't win with brute force, what do? You start a smear campaign. You attack God's name. You plant seeds of doubt about his goodness, his fairness, his love. You try to undermine his authority not by fighting him, but by convincing everyone else that he's a tyrant not worthy of their trust.
Which, of course, leads to the big, obvious question we're all thinking. If the accusations are just a bunch of lies, why doesn't God just use his infinite power to shut the accuser up and end the whole thing right then and there?
And this is where a really simple analogy makes it all click. Imagine a city mayor is falsely accused of being a corrupt, power-hungry tyrant. Now, if her response is to use her power to throw her accusers in jail and censor the story, does that prove she's innocent? No way! It does the exact opposite. It makes her look even guiltier. To truly clear her name, she can't use a show of force. She needs a public, transparent demonstration of her good character.
So if just squashing the enemy would actually make God look bad, what's the alternative? How do you answer accusations against your very character in a way that leaves no doubt? Well, this brings us to the very center, the absolute climax of this entire framework, the cross.
In this view of a cosmic conflict, the cross is reframed into something so much bigger. It isn't just a plan to forgive human sin. It's God's ultimate, public answer to all the slander. It's his definitive, irrefutable demonstration of what his character is truly like, staged for the entire universe to witness.
So what exactly did this demonstration show everyone? Well, a few massive things. First, It showed perfect love, a God willing to suffer and die for the very people who were his enemies. Second, it showed perfect justice, a way to forgive and be merciful without just ignoring the real consequences of evil. Put those together, and the idea is that they completely shatter the enemy's lies and build the moral foundation needed to end evil once and for all.
This event is put forward as the final piece of evidence, the ultimate mic drop. It's meant to be such a complete and total demonstration of love that it leads to this profound question from the Bible. I mean, really, after seeing that, what more could he possibly do? What accusation could even stick anymore?
And this is the final piece of the puzzle. The demonstration had to happen before the final cleanup. By first proving his character beyond a shadow of a doubt, God can then move to finally and permanently wipe out evil. And when he does, no one in the universe will ever have a reason to wonder, maybe that accuser had a point. The trust in his goodness will be completely secure.
So what this framework really does is it changes evil from being a permanent, unsolvable problem about God's nature into a temporary, tragic chapter in a much larger story, a cosmic conflict that's actually heading toward a final and total resolution. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. How does seeing evil this way, as a temporary war, not a permanent state, change how we look at the suffering we see all around us?